and welcome to Real Talk, the show where we go in and talk about all the things that people are thinking in about aesthetics, but not necessarily talking about. My name is Miranda Pierce. I'm Customer Experience Director at Skin Viva, and this is my hubby, Dr.
Tim Pierce. Hi, welcome.
So today we want to tackle a bit of a topic all about do people get addicted to aesthetics? And interestingly, I've been in aesthetics for 10 years on the phones booking people in Tim's diary and all our other clinicians, and they often ask this question, but will I get addicted? And I think there's a sense that somehow when you start, like a bit like Pringles, once you pop you can't stop, but in a bad way and involving needles and your face. So what do you think? Can people get addicted to aesthetics?
Well, it depends first on what you actually mean by addiction.
Yeah.
Technically, in terms of medical addiction, the answer is no. But what are people really meaning when they say that? Medical addiction really involves a change in the shape of how your brain works, so that it starts to reorientate itself to just go after the goal of, usually it's drugs. So you give up all sorts of other things and you focus only on that thing, and it causes all sorts of harm physically to your body and to your whole social setup. But obviously that's not the kind of addiction people are talking about. But they are also hinting that perhaps you start to do that beyond the point where it starts to cause harm in other places in your life. And that's the key thing, which is it possible that medical aesthetics the people's looking at their own face can become addictive in that you may do it even though it's causing harm.
Right.
That for me would be the definition of addiction, is that you do it even though it causes harm. And what I'd say is the short answer is almost no one, but yes, there are some people.
It depends what people mean by harm, doesn't it? Because do they mean harm as in they're going to have to keep dishing out money?
Well,
not in a sort of like a gambling addiction kind of way.
You're right, there's an extra
level. In an
level.
unnecessary way.
I think what actually most people mean is this works so well that I'm going to have to keep doing it in order to feel as great as I do now.
Yeah.
So that is the least harmful form. I mean, it's arguably not harmful at all. It's like discovering that you feel much better after a cup of coffee and you can work harder and you just have a cup of coffee every morning. It's sort of like an addiction. I should have used that because coffee is kind of addictive, but only that the technical definition of addiction is you need more and more to keep you feeling the same. But that isn't normally what people mean. They mean, I've discovered something that works so well that I'm going to have to keep doing it so that I feel as good as I do now. So I maintain this feeling. So if you call that addiction, then you could say that it's addictive, but that isn't really a problematic form of addiction, because if you were to stay in that frame of mind, you would just maintain it and keep having the same thing. And it isn't heading off in a direction that you're out of control of. You're just maintaining it.
Yeah. What about people who are getting... See, it's interesting. My brain immediately goes to an area that I don't understand. So I don't think you could become addicted to aesthetics, and I kind of feel like, maybe I'm being a bit casual, but I feel like just only in the same way that you can get addicted to cutting your hair. You know, I just had my hair coloured yesterday. Well, it's like, I'm addicted to that because it works and I feel like I look better. So no harm done. But when I think about a trend that's happening recently with these extreme jawlines, that kind of, I don't understand it, and I feel like that's bad if people keep thinking, right, more and more and more and more, or is that different, something different?
Yeah, so you're hinting at the same thing, which is that you persist with something even though it's gone beyond the point of helping you and it's now in a different realm of causing a problem, yet you still persist. So that's what the dangerous kind of addiction is. The other type of repeated behavior is just that you keep doing it because you discovered a new way that makes your life better. But
what about these jawlines? What do you think?
So I'm trying to disentangle what your real fear is here, because if you've always had a weak jawline and now you have it sorted and you're happy, like, you may only come back and have it done once a year and never think about it the rest of the year. That's possible, not necessarily addiction. I think what you're seeing there is what I do think I think built into what you're saying is a perceived kind of worry that it's kind of like retail therapy, like that you're trying new things just because they're available and not necessarily because they're actually going to make you happy. And
but you try them because the last thing made you happy. So my journey with my face is that I always used to have anti-wrinkle injections for the longest time, and then a few years ago I had 3 syringes. So I had tear trough and 2 in cheek, which was amazing. Then I had 10 syringes. And it's so interesting because after the 10 syringes, it was almost like, I was like, now I've had this mega job, but very subtle, but like, what else can I have? It was almost like my gateway drug was kind of like, that's a horrible way of putting it, but was this big treatment. And then I worked back, and the most recent one I've had is my lips. So, but I have to say that when I'd had that big one, I was like, and I was, wow, blown away. I did start to shop. I was a bit like, ooh, what else can I have? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just when I just worry about these jawlines because they are so big and they just kind of.
But okay, so you're worried about something that's anesthetically pleasing to your eye.
Yeah.
So we've got to separate that from addiction, because you can have that done once and never have it done again, and you've still got the same problem.
But I think that it's the problem not that they kind of just kept pushing it with more and more syringes.
So this is what I mean about the retail therapy element, is that there is a form of addiction where the feeling that you're after is transient.
Right.
The jawline isn't. So it's the new feeling of, wow, I've never had this jawline like this. This is such a buzz. And that will last, it's been studied for about 21 days, and then it wears off.
That's amazing.
So the getting used to yourself and looking in the mirror and thinking, I look amazing and all that, it's 21 days of feeling on top of the world. And then you readjust and you're back to your normal self, even though your jawline is still treated. So there are a small percentage of people, and they are small, there's not actually something that we see coming back to the clinic all the time, who will go after that feeling again. I love it when I've had my lips done, I want them done again. But you only had them done 3 months ago. Yeah. And that is a form of addiction, because what they're after is the new feeling. It's like retail. That's why I bring up retail therapy as a form, because you feel great when you buy a new anything, like a new handbag, even a new dustpan and brush. Like it can give you a little buzz of something new. But you don't. If you go after that feeling, what we normally do, people who like retail therapy, is they buy different things, and the old thing gets left behind. Yeah. Whereas if it's on your face, you're putting the old thing underneath the new thing repeatedly, and you start to drift off into a direction that isn't aesthetically pleasing. And I think that's what you're worried about, is that
that's where harm comes in.
Yeah. So you're getting the new feeling at the expense of looking like a human being. You're starting to look something different or something odd. Okay. Now, also, there are people who overtreat themselves who are not addicted, and they do it specifically to look overtreated.
Yes, status.
For status, yeah. In certain circles, that's perceived as a signal of social power, wealth, all sorts of things that come into it. I've heard, in fact, I think one of these, on these TV, kind of lower level.
Like Towie
type. I think it was one of them said that you used to have to spend your money on a handbag, now you can just spend it on lips. So that was like a real moment of like, oh, so she wants people to be able to tell that you can see her lips. And that's because they are a status symbol in the same way as a handbag. It's nothing to do with beauty. And then it suddenly makes sense. Okay, so it's a social signal to other people that and this is very rare actually. I'd say for our clients, vast majority of our clients don't want people to know. There are some who do and some who don't, but that's helps you to understand what the psychological driver is there with that.
Or just for clarity, I don't think it's, because we did a survey recently, I don't think it's that they don't want people to know. I think it's just that they want to be in control of that message. They're not kind of like, hello, they're more just, if someone asked them, they probably would say yes, but they're not going to go and broadcast it because they just want a tweak or rejuvenation. But
the point being of that whole long point is that you can't tell by looking at someone's face whether they're addicted, because some people want to be overtreated for different reasons. Yes, there are people who want to keep going even though they've reached an aesthetic ideal because they like new things, but they're relatively rare. Okay.
And how do you sort of spot that, and how would you deal with that if someone came to you?
Well, the most obvious thing is that they're asking for treatments that are now going beyond what is aesthetically what we know to be, because we've spent a long time trying to study the angles and the ratios and proportions of the face. And when someone has been, usually they're very happy with the previous treatment, and then they come back and ask for something that's on top of it, that's contradictory to those rules.
Like the science rules, the golden ratio and things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of it actually often happens with people whose feature is already good. So I've always loved my cheekbones. I had some filler to restore them, and now I want even more because I love that they are my defining feature. Yeah. And sometimes it's that it's complex, that one as well, but it's the mixture of the newness plus the definition of yourself becoming cheeks or something that you need to. And the way I get out of it is I have exactly this conversation. So there's no, you don't have, because once people unpack themselves what they're aiming towards and they agree, yeah, that's it, I do love the newness of it all, you can have a discussion around where that leads and when you need to stop. Or also to actually try and ground them back in the aesthetic rules and then say, if your goal is to be more beautiful, maybe I can find something else that will actually achieve that without breaking the rule. Or maybe you've achieved the best that you can with these procedures and you should just go off and try and enjoy them. And if you're someone who likes newness in your life, you might be able to do it in a different way that's more sustainable.
Okay. But just to share with people and you what happened recently when I had my lip treatment is I can see how this addiction thing happens. So I had my lips, they were a shock to me, as I've shared before, because I wasn't expecting, I thought I was going to rejuvenate my lips. So almost like, let's say that 0 is neutral about how I've always felt about my lips, which is, fine, good, And let's say I went down a little bit from 0 to -5 because they lost some volume with age. I thought I'd be going back to 0, but what happened was I ended up going higher, as in not in volume, maybe in volume, but the point is in terms of how it made me feel. It made me feel amazing, like, oh my God, I just felt on the front foot and people noticed and I didn't expect to want them to notice, but when they did, I was like, yay, it was really interesting. I'm sure we'll discuss it more on another occasion, but So at very first, when I had the mirror handed to me, I was a bit like, whoa, I was not expecting that. Or, almost a bit like, because I didn't expect it. Then I quickly got used to them. They've swole. They were a bit swollen. Swelled, thank you. And so that was a bit like, ooh. Then they came down, and then I was like on cloud 9, probably for about 21 days. And then it's so funny because I've had to have a word with myself a couple of times, not a big deal, but where I've been a bit like, oh, that feeling is over now, I wonder what, and you start thinking, oh no, have they gone down too much below, and you start to almost question treatment. But I know what's happening, because this is a classic process with lips, isn't it? And I know that my lips are objectively the same as, they were a couple of days afterwards, so, but yeah, it's so interesting. So you can see how that feeling, where you want it back.
Yeah, well, I mean, lips are particularly that way because they represent much more than just restoration.
Yeah.
If you get a wrinkle, you feel like you've got certainty back of that problem. But when you treat your lips, I was actually very interested because obviously I never normally hear, my clients don't normally speak to me about their feelings afterwards. They speak to them before, and then they look in the mirror, and I can often tell the look on their face that they're really happy, but I don't get the inner psychology afterwards. Whereas you've given that, and you said something which, to my knowledge, and it's probably because I'm a man and I don't give off those vibes, but you said I feel sexy now, and that's a whole different thing than actually what you wanted when you first came in, because you just wanted to restore and maintain, and then you flipped over into something else much more positive. And of course, that's a really powerful feeling that you obviously want more of. Front foot. Yeah, and but there is potential there, that risk that you can keep going and have it going too far, because it just doesn't last, that feeling. So it's worth people knowing that you've got to kind of know that before you go in. You'll feel excited about the procedure, you'll get all the buzz of it, but know that it's going to last 3 weeks, and then you have to wait for a bit longer before you, unless there's an aesthetic indication, like your lips still aren't actually big enough for your face, and maybe you can do more, but it's not, you've got to put the brakes on with that feeling. But it's a powerful feeling, as you've now experienced.
Do you know, I would go ahead and say I don't think I'll ever feel that way again. I feel like it's almost one of them, like it's done now. Like I would recommend it to anyone to get their lips done for the first time, because it's just like, it blows your mind. And all these years I've been talking to clients on the phone and just never knew that was that amazing feeling. So yeah, okay. So I think what we're saying in summary is that yes, technically, you can't get addicted to aesthetics. It's not like a drug. You can become, would you say, it's not even habit, it's like you can become really, what is the word? You can become very used to and
I think in a colloquial sense it is a kind of addiction, because there are certain people who will keep going with it to the point of harm, as in they keep having procedures even though they're downgrading themselves.
Yes.
So that's what we want to be careful of, and that's why these discussions are helpful, is because people will start to understand the real drivers behind what they're doing with their treatments, and hopefully decide not to have new treatments just because they love the newness of it.
Yes.
And try and ground themselves in the science of beauty, and make sure they're actually getting more beautiful with treatments, not just more treated.
Yeah, and their whole well-being as well.
Yeah. And also, I think there's something in it. This is a next step when I'm going into kind of GP or psychology land, which is, if you're getting that buzz in your life from treatments, it may be something that you need to go and explore in other parts of your life. You can do in a way that's more sustainable. So you love newness, like you probably have a personality type who's, like, as you are actually, you're high in openness. You like to experience new things and travel and do things. Well, that might be an indication you can get that same feeling in a way that is more sustainable by just making a conscious effort to do something else.
Go base jumping or something like that.
Yeah. Because in a way, that's what your brain is telling you with that feeling is, oh, I need this feeling. It makes me feel alive.
Yeah. It did. Yeah. But yeah, I'm still loving them. Still loving putting the old lip gloss on and everything. Right. That was super interesting, I think. So the summary is technically yes, but if you come to a place where they will talk to you and consult you in a responsible way, then no, you'll be absolutely fine. You won't get a mega jawline.
There are various safeguards which should be able to keep you safe, and just knowing about this, even just listening to this, hopefully will help you, which is you can get all the good bits without the risks if you're just aware of what's driving you.
But that question has come up to me quite a few times in these 10 years. If there are any other questions that you guys are interested in, kind of that are maybe stopping you having treatment, or you've heard, your cousins say and you're worrying about with aesthetics, then please do drop a comment below, and we would absolutely love to go after and chase down a particular topic. So thank you for joining us again, guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time on Real Talk.
Thanks for watching.